everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Flycast Partners presentation. I will be your host. Today's presentation is on Automate Your Way to Success. Our presenter will be Flycast Partners' very own John Postorino. John is our new Chief Operations Officer and is a driver of change and strategic planning. He can utilize Lean Six Sigma thinking and strategies to help improve a company's performance. John has many years of experience with automation initiatives, focusing on empowering customers to change the way business is being conducted by introducing a new approach for IT. He has a track record of delivering innovative solutions that empower your organization while providing higher security, a better quality of service, and minimizing costs. Before we get started, John, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience. We are founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space and took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added them to become the best components necessary to grow and be the leading value-added reseller, one of the best leading value-added resellers in the North American IT market. We do offer best-in-class implementation services and training on IT service management, IT asset management, IT operations management, workload automation, as well as operations management projects, all using ITIL best practice. Our professional services team can easily scale up or down to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of your size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on those normal day-to-day operations, saving you valuable time and money. I encourage you to reach out to us directly at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, or go out to our website and chat with one of our live IT experts. They'll be happy to talk to you during normal business hours, Monday through Friday. You can take a look at one of many of the webinars that we have coming up and pick ones that may interest you or your coworkers and share them. You can check ongoing events that are coming up in the near future or look at different technologies that might interest you. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to the star of the hour, John Postorino. And John, let's go ahead and start out with a poll. As you're showing your screen, we'll go ahead and launch a poll here. And we would like to know, where do you feel your organization is in regards to your IT security model? Just select one: chaotic, reactive, proactive, services, or value. That should be value there, folks. Let us know what you think. And John, you should be sharing your screen at this point. Let's take a look at what we have.
Can you see it?
It looks like we're doing good. Folks,
okay.
It looks like we've got an overall polling here of 50% of you say that you're in reactive mode with this. And I would venture to say that that's probably pretty, nope, we're up to 60%, that keeps going up. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the waters are like out there, John. So we'll close the poll out and let you go ahead and get on with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Rich. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So Rich, said all those flattering things, about kind of my background, but really what this is this whole presentation is just about kind of thinking outside the box within IT, and I think as we continue to mature as organizations and resources become I want to say less available, and I say resources to include people, money, those type of things. We have to think differently because we have to have a strategic advantage over our competitors. And how do we achieve that? How do we achieve those types of advantages? How do we make ourselves be as efficient as possible? And those are some of the things that I'd like to talk about today. And this is obviously a very open conversation, and Rich is going to actually be gathering up some questions, and he's going to be asking me questions as we go throughout. So if you guys have anything you want to talk about or something that I'm not making perfectly clear, please let me know. This is my first webinar, and it's kind of odd just looking at screens and knowing that people are listening. So just bear with me. But again, if you have any kind of questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So with that, really what is automation? And there's all these definitions out there, but really one of the things, it just talks about the removal of manual touch points throughout a process. And let's just get to the down and dirty. This is kind of a fancy way, and I think I got this from Webster's. But really, if you look at it, let's just focus on the things that we know are relevant to us within IT, and it's manual touch points. And we know manual touch points introduce a lot of different things to the process, and a lot of times it's error, and it's human error, and we have no consistency in the output. So this whole presentation is going to talk about automation. It's going to talk about how to make your processes more efficient, and how to reduce or eliminate manual touch points. And one thing I do want to talk about is this is based upon technology. It's Ivanti technology, but really you can take and we're obviously an Ivanti Platinum partner, soon to be elite partner. But one thing I want you guys to think about is really this is applicable with other types of software, and it's really more of a mindset. If you can think about reduction manual touch points, automation, efficiencies, and that's kind of your mindset going into your daily duties, you can make a huge improvement within an organization and huge impact within an organization. So that is what automation is really. It's removal of manual touch points. And then why automation? And this is coming from Gartner. Gartner's saying that, hey, it's going to be the nucleus of a business, especially from a digital business. Anything that you can get to market faster, more efficiently, and cheaper than your competitors, you're establishing yourself as the market leader. And there's a lot of examples of you look at Amazon. Amazon, they're doing releases, on an hourly basis, and they're more efficient, and they're using obviously DevOps, but they're more efficient, and they're doing things more efficiently than their peers or their competitors. And it's obviously established them as the market leader. We also had, what's driving automation, and this is again from one of the Gartner people, but if you can't do it better and faster, you're going to lose out. And that's really the only thing, if you break it down into the simplest form, and this goes for profit, nonprofit, Fed, SLED, all the different types of agencies and different types of organizations that we all deal with on a daily basis. It's anybody. You have to be competitive. You have to be efficient, because you don't have an unlimited amount of resources to do your job on a daily basis. And if anything, it's going to the other side where things become leaner. The economy, there's a dip in the economy. I mean, look at the market recently with the huge impact on the Dow. That impacts an organization. That impacts your resources. People can lose their jobs based upon, a tick on the Dow on a daily basis. So if they're not doing it efficiently and they're not doing it as effectively as they can, they're losing out. So IT service organizations, or IT management organizations, I apologize, this is the standard maturity model. This is very similar to, and I don't know if everybody, or the participants on the phone, what you know about from maturity models, but it's ITIL, CMMI. I mean, there's different models out there, but at the end of the day, they're all normally 5 stages, and they go from least mature to most mature. And so when it's funny, because the poll that was just taken, and we say that 57% are reactive, that's even probably very high. It's probably more chaotic. And then so the people who put proactive, I mean, I would love to learn or understand more about their organizations, because proactive is a relatively mature organization. So if you look at these columns here and you look at chaotic, and you're just saying, okay, chaotic's just daily craziness. Chaotic is the daily firefight. That's going in, no predictable outcome, always being, reactive, not proactive, allowing the daily duties or allowing the daily events control really all your time. And that's really, manual, no standard processes, no consistent output, dirty data, all the different things that we've always, that we experience consistently within IT. Reactive, now you're getting a little bit more mature, and you're going to sit there and say, okay, you have some kind of way to get software out to your people. You have some kind of incident, ISM solution potentially. You can measure maybe availability of some products, maybe your entire network, but really it's just it's being somewhat mature, but you're really nowhere near where you need to be. And then you have proactive. And proactive is really what we're going to focus on today. And proactive is really, you have a lot of automation in place. You remove manual touch points. You have predictive problem analysis. You know, a lot of this, and for us within Flycast, you know, we're an ITIL organization. So we have a lot of these things. We run our organization utilizing metrics. You know, we look at information, we look at, you know, trends, all the different things that you want to have because you're being proactive. You're predicting the marketplace. You're predicting your marketplace in your business. And again, that's separating you from your competitors. And then you have services. And services, and I'll be perfectly, you know, frank with everybody. You know, you have guaranteed SLAs. You know, you have, you know, you're measuring reports, availabilities. You have integrated processes. You have capacity management. But at the end of the day, services to get to that level is relatively costly. So what I always say, and then if you put a value to each one of these, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually organizations that are relatively mature in their automation and their maturity model, they're usually about a 3.4. So, and once you get above that, it becomes very costly. And if you ever, you know, and I'll be honest, I've only seen a few organizations in my lifetime that have ever gotten to level 5. And those were organizations that were associated with, no kidding, life and death situations. Like people were going to be hurt in, you know, aviation industry, medical industry, you know, certain things that are, no kidding, life or death situations. They're the ones that when, you know, they will spend the extra money and they will become, you know, level 5 for maturity level. So the next one is really the stages of automation. You can see the stages of automation mirror, you know, the maturity model, the IT maturity model within an organization. And again, it's the same, let's just say it's the same 5 things: chaotic, reactive, proactive, service, value. And we're going to go into a little bit more on that in a moment. But it exactly mirrors the previous slide, but this is really just isolated to maturity, or to automation, I'm sorry. So there's different types of automation. And you can see right here, there's 6 different types. And we're going to focus on the one on the bottom there called IT process automation. That's where we're going to be focused. And that's where, honestly, initially, that's where you get the most bang for your buck regarding the money spent and the return on investment within your organization. So when you got to look at, okay, what types of processes are you going to have when you implement IT process automation? You're going to have coordination of work across the enterprise. So instead of having very siloed processes and very siloed work, you know, it could be like, oh, IT does it this way, and then, you know, procurement does it this way, and ops does it this way. You have that, you've made a bridge across the organization, and now you're doing things consistently across the entire process, not siloed within each department or within each section within a department. You want to talk about sequence workflow. What does that mean? You're doing things in the same order every single time because you remove manual touch points. There's no manual intervention. There's no human error. There's none of the things that are associated with that chaotic state. So now you're getting into automation, and you actually have a defined sequence. You have a run book. You have a workbook. That is, so you're going to have the same things happen consistently every time when you run a transaction. And then there's obviously other things, I won't say transaction, let's say service, but you also have the opportunity to put, you know, what do they call them? Alarms. So you can have alarms or fail safes put in place that once you get to a certain point and before you have a catastrophic failure, you can have a workbook set up where it takes down the entire system. When I say takes it down and take it down, really, I mean, put it on hold until somebody goes in there and physically looks at it and says, oh no, this is good, or this is bad. And if it's bad, you can sit there and say, don't execute, and you just save all your downtime. It's another beauty of sequential workflow. You have cross-functional. You know, cross-functional, again, is kind of ties into that coordinate work across that entire organization or the enterprise. So instead of trying to execute something, you're sitting there, now you're bringing in HR, you're bringing in IT, you're bringing in security, you know, physical security, you're bringing in training, you're bringing in, you know, the cybersecurity, you're bringing in, you know, the automation of building devices. So you're bringing in a lot of different things into your process, but again, you're going across the enterprise, so you're getting buy-in from everybody. Well, hopefully you're getting buy-in from everybody, and sometimes it's hard, and I can talk to you ad nauseum about that. Sometimes it's very difficult for an organization to change their mindset about automation and about processes and about working together and kind of breaking down those silos within an organization and you know, attacking the problem as a team, as a group, instead of as an individual. And then the last thing really is orchestrate tasks. And again, that goes into the sequence workflow. If you talk about orchestrating your tasks, It can be set up when you want, how you want, the types of things that you want. You can set timers. You can, again, you have workbooks. You have a defined process on how things work, when they're going to work, and you can set that up, and then it runs. And then, like I said, if you have fail safes in there, when something's running, and if it's going to fail, or if it runs into something that's abnormal to the process, it will stop itself. And again, that's one of the beauties of automation. So when you want to look at the benefits, and I guess I kind of spoiled it for everybody because I just told you about half these things. So you want to look at the benefits: operational efficiency. You're doing less, or I'm sorry, you're doing more with less. So you have less resources, but you're able to do more work. You're able to reduce your, let's just say, your ISM ticket count substantially by automation. We've helped customers go from having 20,000 service desk tickets on a month to 10,000 by just automating a few tasks. And that's something else that, I don't know if this is the time or the place, but that's something else that we can talk about, because there's a way to, execute an internal, analyses of processes and tickets, and then how do you attack those in a very sequential order. But I think that's outside of this topic, or this webinar. You want to talk about mitigating risk. Well, obviously you're mitigating risk because you've taken out human intervention. You've taken out human touch points. So you're going to have consistent, standardized results, which obviously helps you internally and externally. And I'll go into more than that in a moment. You have reduced cost. Again, we just talked about it, doing more with less. And then the last one is standardization. You have a continuous output every single time based upon a run book that you've created within the automation process that is going to execute, the same every single time, all the time. So what I want to talk about or show you a little bit, I'm going to show you, some things. Sometimes people are just better with pictures, and I'm definitely one of those people. I mean, if I see a picture, it's easier. If I see a workflow, it's easier for me to look at it than read about it. So I want to go into, like, what is a traditional IT process, and this isn't in most places, and this is going to be, even level 1, level 2 stuff right here, from a maturity model standpoint. So you have an individual that needs a bunch of different services, and each one of these items. So your new user, your mail, group, all those different types of things. And this is different for every organization. It could be one thing, it could be 100 things. It just depends, what your organization wants and needs for an individual or a new employee to be productive. But each one of these, and normally in a traditional organization, is a separate service ticket within itself. So right here, you look at this, and this is a very simple example. You have 5 different service tickets being submitted into their ISM tool, if they have one. And then what's happening? Well, it's going into the next one here is really going to be, this is kind of moving slow, and I apologize. But the next one, it's going into your service, your ISM system. And then what's happened? Oh, it's got to go to some supervisor, and obviously the tie depicts supervisors. But it goes to a supervisor for approval or disapproval. Then it goes back into the ticketing system, but now this is IT ticketing system. And then IT takes care of it, and then it's executed. So each one of these things is being done, but look at the time it takes. And this is just based upon our historical analysis of implementations of automation. So you talk minutes and days. So minutes and days. So what are you losing? You're losing nothing but productivity for that new employee, and that new employee has already become demotivated because they're sitting there and they're idle and they're not contributing to anything because they don't have the resources, and we call them day one entitlements, to be effective the minute they walk in that door. That's what we're trying to change. Let me give you another example. Same new employee, but now we need other things. We need a laptop. We need a virtual machine. How do we do that? Oh, it goes back into the ticketing system. Oh, it goes to a supervisor. Then it goes back, it goes into IT ticketing system. IT looks at it, they execute maybe, or do they have questions? Well, then it goes back into the ticketing system for another supervisor to approve. Could be cost effective, or could be money impacting, financial impacting. Could be something that was unclear, and you have to go through this process again based upon some attribute for that new employee. And could be the new employee's title, could be the new employee's location. Then it goes back into the IT ticketing system. IT gets it, and then they execute. And you look at this. I mean, and again, this is just examples based upon the things that we've done in the past. You're looking at days. In some companies, we've had some technical companies that it has been weeks and sometimes months for people to have access to everything that's required for them to be a productive employee. Well, just think about that lost productivity and think about your competitors who are doing it more efficiently utilizing automation. So let me show you what an automated process would look like within an organization. You have the same tasks or same things that are required within the organization. I have a person. Oh, what's happening? It's going to go. I'm now in the HR system. I'm in, Workday or SAP or whatever it may be. And so now I'm syncing, and now automation is taking it. And automation is going to start executing all these different services. But look how fast that could do that. And this is true. I mean, this can be in minutes that you can have somebody up and running. And it also goes through the same thing. If you want somebody who, potentially is leaving the organization, and we all have these within our organizations, a sensitive termination, you can do, let's just say, just the opposite. And you can empower people. You can empower people within your organization to have that authority to go in and hit a button that will execute a service to terminate somebody immediately and all their access. And I know, well, I don't know, I would assume that the majority of the people on the phone or on the webinar understand the problems associated with people having access after they've left the organization. I mean, it could be catastrophic. So those are the things that you have to be well aware of. These are the things that these are the problems automation can solve immediately. And one thing I also want to say is if you have a change in a status for anybody and things change within an organization, and it could be right now I'm just focusing on people and the changes in people. But say you have, John, and John one day is, the CEO of the company, he does something horribly wrong, and then the next day, John's out sweeping the parking lot. Well, I don't need the same access I had the day before, and I have to have change, and that has to change based upon my title and based upon my location and some other attributes, and the attributes can be unlimited, but it's something specific. And then that's how you build your models, and that's how you build those workflows and those workbooks from an automation perspective. So let's just look at some examples of automated tasks. And these are just, and I'll be honest, whatever you can think of, I can't say whatever, most of the things that you think of can be achieved or completed within automation. And really, this is the whole mindset of an organization. This is some of the, well, not that, these are some of the things that can be done, but you have to look at it from a creative and kind of a different mindset than traditional IT. Traditional IT was very structured. It was very, we do this, this is how we do this. But now you're looking at automation can do all these things, and you can redeploy resources, internal, and you can ease auditing requirements. You can have, auditors start seeing automation, and they know there's no manual touch points or human touch points within the process, and you start passing audits. So something that used to take weeks can go down to literally hours. And that's internal and external based upon automation. So anyway, so there's a lot of different things that you can do with automation. I'm not going to bore you to death with these lists, but if you look at it, you can create users, home drives, you create VMs, you create templates, change locations, something changes in location of that person, they got moved or promoted, demoted, they go out on leave of absence, anything changes within that status, the automation can take that and within minutes, strip them of their previous access rights, and then provide them with new access rights based upon the new information or whatever changed. So within Ivanti, Ivanti has different, and I know that this is kind of a change or it's changing as we speak. Ivanti normally has 5 different pillars. And within these 5 different pillars, there's different tools that are associated with doing certain things throughout the organization. You could have ISM, you could have identity, you could have security, you have endpoint, you have asset. So really you have to look at, okay, how can I take this automation tool and tie into these different pillars to be the most effective organization I could be? And again, this is focused just on identity, on Ivanti software and the pillars that they have established. But don't let that stop you thinking outside the box with other technologies and other software applications and other things that you have within your organization, both on-prem and off-prem. You can use this tool, you can use automation to solve a lot of problems. Now I want to say problems, let's say challenges. Okay, so you want to look at it, and these are just some of the things that you can do with identity. You could automate, you could deprovision and provision people based upon, again, some kind of attributes. And you can do this in your core, and you can do this in your third-party systems. You can do this on-prem, off-prem. It doesn't matter. It's just how do you build the workbook and how do you gain access? And I'll talk about that in a moment. You talk about, you can do security groups, you can do distribution lists, you can do provisioning, deprovisioning of SaaS-based applications. You want to talk about change, and again, in application software, anything that's associated with an individual based upon some specific type of attribute. And here's one thing that I know is a problem in almost every organization that we go in and we start talking to about process improvement and maturity models and automation is contractors. How do you track your contractors? Some people build this structure directly into their HRIS system. Some people have a separate database. Some people don't know. But one of the things that you talk about or one of the internal problems of an organization based upon contractors is how long should they have access to the system and what type of access should they have and who's approving that and who's disapproving that and who's responsible for that. So those certain things are going to drive your contractor workforce. So if you don't have that information and contractors, and again, aren't being, and I want to say supervised from an IT perspective, you could have contractors, in your systems doing things or having access to things that they shouldn't have, or their project can be long done or long completed and they still have access. So it's something that you have to be very cognizant of, but utilizing automation is some way to do that. So you can use automation and almost treat them exactly like a permanent hire or an FTE. And you could, again, based upon some kind of criteria, you can change the functions that happen within that for that person, on a time basis. So it can be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You have to reset your password. You have to get approved again. And you can set up that workflow to tell whatever that supervisor is that's responsible for that contractor, hey, they're still here. Do you need them? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, well, their access is going to expire on this day. Do you want to renew it? Yes, no. And those are the kind of things you can build, and then it goes right back into the systems that are being impacted, and it gives them access or maintains their access. Next one is service management, and you guys, and I know Flycast is a very heavy service management organization. And obviously that's a lot of the Ivanti business, and their ISM tool is a very good tool. But you also look, there's other tools out there too. But at the end of the day, any organization that wants to have some type of maturity within their IT process has to truly have some kind of ISM tool. And it doesn't have to be as elaborate as I don't even know. Let's just say that the leader in the pack. It could be anything, but it's some way to track tickets, it's some way to track problem resolution within your organization. So if you look at things automation can do, automation can start and stop. So somebody puts in a ticket, and automation can take that and execute some kind of service and then go back into the ISM tool and close that ticket. You could talk about group access. I need group access for a specific amount of time. I need something that's not managed by Active Directory. And then you start talking about, and this is what I spoke about earlier in the conversation was, like your ticket reduction. How can you look at tickets and come up with problem resolution solutions or problem resolution based upon specific topics? It could be password reset, could be POS access, it could be physical access. It could be really anything associated with a person or a thing and something that happens. And you look at what the best way to approach this is you do the ticket analysis, and you could do that on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, an annual basis. But you want to look at what are your pain points. And if you identify your pain points, those are the things that you want to, in most cases, automate. And once you automate them, again, you take out the manual touch point, you standardize that process, you become more efficient, and you can redeploy assets. Asset manager. You want to sit there and say, okay, what's around? What's going on? What do I have out there in the network? What applications do I have? What kind of licenses do I have on those on those devices? And here's one thing that's very important is VM, and I always say this wrong, reclamation. Reclamation, I'm gonna say it like that. I'm probably saying it incorrect, but just go with me. So, you also sit there and say a VM can be out there indefinitely. And VMs cost money. And VMs, you only have so many VMs within an organization. If you hit your limit and somebody's trying to get in, they're going to be kicked out. They're not going to have access. So if you don't go back in and reclaim those assets that have been stale, they're going to sit out there indefinitely. And that's just going to cost you money and resources. So this is one great way to go in, and you can do a boot storm. You can do a lot of different things on a schedule, on a specific schedule, to go in and reset all those devices and have them, I would say, net new, but have people where they're all available again, and your inventory is where it should be. Those are a lot of things that people don't consider. I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Those are a lot of things people don't consider when you start talking about your VMs, and they don't think about the cost when you have something out there running indefinitely or something that's stale and not being used. It's still costing you money. Endpoint management. You want to look at, okay, how can we install applications or patches or things automatically? And it could be as easy as somebody just came on the network, and I want to see that, oh, they came on the network. I just did a scan of their device. They need this type of information or this type of software to be successful, or they need this type of software, really, to not be a security risk. So there's a lot of different things that have to be considered, and when it comes from endpoint management and those devices that have to be up to date, and you can do that automatically. You can even do, like we've even done things utilizing automation that can be as complex as doing, OSD upgrades. And you're saying, oh my gosh, you're building a task sequence and everything. You're doing that in Endpoint Manager. You're doing that in SCCM. But at the end of the day, you're executing that all through automation. And it could be grabbing persona. It could be pulling things into a folder, a temporary folder, while you're doing while you're laying down the new OS, testing it, having clear, and then bringing all that persona information back in. That's all done through automation. Endpoint security, again, patches, whitelist applications. You could potentially elevate somebody's access or an application based upon a need or immediate need of an organization. You could sit there and you can make things unavailable to somebody immediately utilizing automation, based upon something normally from your security folks. But you can do that indefinitely. You can do that as many times as you want, and you can do it almost immediately to all your devices. And then SOX compliance scans. You want to look at, again, who's got access, why they have access, what are they doing, when they doing it. It's the who, what, when, where, why in IT. But you can sit there, and for anybody who's gone through SOX compliance scans or SOX audits, they're relatively intensive. And if you can lessen the burden on the organization, that's money in the organization's pocket. That's less that they have to spend on internal and external auditors. And obviously external auditors are even more expensive. And when they come in, and you can show them utilizing automation and that there's no manual touch points within the process and why something happened, through logs, through audit logs, you're way ahead of it. And you just reduce, the complexity of an audit exponentially by introducing automation. So here, let me just give you an example. This is just for, if you tie this all together, let's just take a look at what the process would be. I hire somebody, and I send an alert to their immediate supervisor saying, hey, John's coming on board. What do you need? And you give them all the information. So I created their email account. They're in the HRIS system. They're pre-staged and ready to go. They have their title. They have their employee ID. They're going to have access to these things once they come on board, once they come online, but it's already staged and ready to go. So that new director or that new whatever hiring authority has all that information readily available, and it's just waiting now for the person to come in. So they can be productive on day one with day one entitlements. Now the manager is going to go into ISM and he's going to say, hey, or she, whoever it is, hey, I need some software, I need some hardware for this person. Okay, what are you going to do? So they could set up automation, a trigger, and it could be a service that's saying, hey, once they come online, I want a VM to be provisioned for this person. I want all endpoint security software or patches to be applied to this device once it comes online. And then you sit there and say, okay, so you have all these things pre-staged ready to go, and now the hiring date. And you're going to say this person now has their email account, they have their access, and it could be security access, it could be physically tied into the physical security devices within the organization. Could be tied into training that you have to complete something prior to having access to a certain place, again, based upon title and location. But so now they have all this information. Day one, they sit down at their desk and they're productive. The employee logs into their VM and says, oh my gosh, I'm missing a bunch of software or something, or the VM recognizes this person coming in for the first time and starts automatically downloading software, again, based upon automation. And then you kind of go through that whole process. So it can be anything. It could be a service, it could be software, it could be access, it could be anything that you think is required for that person to be productive day one once they step foot, within your organization. Now, Ivanti Automation, and I'll be honest, this is some fancy slide that shows, and then you guys are IT guys, I'm not. So we're going to skip right over this because to me, it just looks like a bunch of boxes with arrows. This is really what I want to talk about. So across all these tiers, so one thing that, and I'll just say that Ivanti's working on diligently are connectors. And that's one of the biggest issues that people talk about from a deficiency regarding automation. What can I connect to out of the box? And you can see just some of the names of major companies up in those boxes and clouds that, and this is becoming more robust on a daily basis because this is really, this really is one of the beauties behind automation. The more connectors you can have out of the box, the better it is for everybody, because then you can be up and running in a shorter period of time. And that's one thing Ivanti is working on diligently. And that's one thing that really, automation tools, they need to have a very robust library of connectors. And so, and obviously, whatever your selection may be from a tool, you really need to look at that. And that should be in some of your evaluation criteria, is how many connectors or what can I do out of the box immediately and effectively. That's it. That's all I have. I don't know, are there any questions? There's anything anybody wants to know? I know I went relatively fast and I'm in here waving my arms around because I'm Italian, but is there anything that anybody wants to know or any questions? Rich?
I don't currently have any questions or anything in chat right now, John, but a fantastic presentation. We've never done one of these before, and I myself learned a great deal about, something that we've had for a couple of years now. I didn't even understand a lot of the value of it, so I appreciate that. Folks, wait a minute, here comes a question right here. Let's see what they've got here. All right. Is there any way to get a copy of your presentation? Diane, absolutely. We will make sure that we get a link out to you for this so you can share with your organization. And by all means, Diane, if you have further questions about this, reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or you can go ahead and chat with us online or email us at info@flycastpartners.com. We'll get back to you right away. Diane, before we send the presentation to you and your organization, did you have any questions you wanted to ask John now? You're welcome, Diane. Very good. Anyone else have any questions? We do have a couple minutes left in the time allocated for today. If not, I want to wish you all a great rest of your week. And I want to thank you for taking time out of all your busy days to join us for this presentation today. John, thank you. I know you're a busy man as well. So thank you for doing the presentation for us. And with that being said, folks, we will see you next week on our next presentation. And look forward to having you guys once again on another Flycast Partners webinar.
Thank you.